To the booth, Brian David Marshall, joined by R&D member Ian Duke, and we are getting ready to watch 8 players crack our first Dragons of Tarkir packs. Let's take a look at the table and see who's sitting around Pro Tour Hall of Famer William Jensen. So there you see William Jensen. He'll be passing to Matthew Little, Stephen Barrios, Ivan Jaya, Dan Blount, Andrew Calderon, number 12 ranked player Jacob Wilson, and Atsushi Nakamura. William Jensen, of course, the number 8 ranked pro right now. What are you thinking about as you're sitting down to draft Dragons of Tarkir, Ian?
Well, Dragons of Tarkir, I think more so than Khans of Tarkir, is just a format that rewards classic Magic strategy.
That should be great for William Jensen.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
He is a classic Magic player.
For sure. So it's really about just the fundamentals. You know, you want to find some open colors, especially at a table like this with so many strong players. So I think we're going to see him kind of maneuvering, bobbing, and weaving a little bit, trying to find what's open and running with it.
So blue-black, consensus, best color combination to be in right now?
Yeah, I've heard a lot of players favoring that. Black just gives you tons of options in this format, strong removal spells to make sure you don't lose to dragons, and then exploit gives you a lot of choices, which gives you opportunity to outplay your opponents.
Now, what do you worry as you sit down at a table at this sort of level of competition about both being blue? You know what? Sounds like the players are ready.
Okay.
So rather than wonder about what's going to happen, let's see what's going to happen as we send it down to the floor. Hello and welcome to coverage of Pro Tour Dragons of Tarkir. I'm Brian David Marshall. I'm joined by Ian Duke, and we are about to watch Pro Tour Hall of Famer William Jensen crack the inaugural Dragons of Tarkir pack here at the Pro Tour. There you get a look at William Jensen, Pro Tour champion, 5-time Pro Tour top 8 competitor, Hall of Famer, and just one of the game's best limited minds. So let's see what he's thinking about here.
I see an Epic Confrontation, I think, pulled to the front, one of the premium removal spells in green.
Pacifism, one of the premium removal spells in Magic history.
And there's Anafenza, Kintree Spirit. So this is a sort of a bomb rare, I think, even though it comes out on turn 2, just really powerful.
Yeah, there you see the Kintree Spirit. Every time a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, you get to bolster 1.
Yeah, super powerful card. It is a heavy commitment to white, but with this being primarily a 2-color format, I don't think Jensen's really going to hesitate here.
Yeah. And we talked about this being a classic Magic draft format, and in classic Magic draft fashion, he took the rare.
That said, he does have to be careful that he was passing a Pacifism there, which could very well be the second best card in the pack, so something to keep in mind. See a Twin Bolt coming to the front. Wow. Another great
I really enjoy. I know people talk a lot about being in aligned colors in this, but I found red-white to be a very successful pairing for me.
Yeah, definitely one of the good options there. I mean, going into Fate Reforged, you get access to those multicolor commons. In this case, Warflare would be available to him. You can get those super late, and that really can support red-white aggressive strategy with lots of tokens.
And really no real white cards to speak of in that pack.
Yep, Twin Bolt, the clear pick there, I think. We'll see if he stays on track for this sort of enemy-colored pair leading into Fate Reforged, or, you know, like I said, he might be bobbing and weaving here a little bit to try to figure out what's open.
Right, he's certainly willing to forego either of those picks, depending on what gets passed to him here. So he's looking.
Looks like pulling another red card to the front there, Sabertooth Outrider.
Tormenting Voice, Anticipate.
Yeah, the Outrider, a solid beatdown creature, not something you're super excited to pick early, but doesn't look like there's too much else in the pack for him unless he wants to deviate to another color. And even then, I don't think any of his other options look that strong.
Not going to switch into blue on Anticipate.
Right, exactly.
Okay. Looking at his 4th pack here. Wow, that's a
Ruthless Deathfang.
Late Ruthless Deathfang.
Yeah,
late Silumgar Butcher.
As we mentioned earlier, blue-black being one of the combinations that's favored by a lot of the pro players. Really interesting to see that going 4th pick here.
Yeah, and it looks like he's taking that, as he should, as a pretty strong signal.
Yep. And Aven Tactician there, I think, as well, which is a solid pickup.
What, was that a Tactician? Oh, that was. Okay, I thought it was a Territorial route, but you're right. So white sort of been put aside, I think, here.
Yeah, which is a shame to potentially give up on that. Anafen's a super strong card, but
Another Saber-Tooth Outrider, Dramoka Dunecaster.
yeah, it looks like he has the Outrider pulled to the front again. Not the most exciting card, but, you know, just kind of filling out his creature base a little bit here.
I mean, not exciting, but it gets the job done.
Yeah, especially if you have a deck that can well support Formidable. I mean, a first strike 4-power creature, super hard to block with Trample to boot.
It looks like there's another Butcher in the pack, yeah. A Dutiful Attendant.
Yeah, so black definitely looking to be fairly
Is that,
open
is that
here.
a Lightwalker at the back of the pack? He's just, you know.
I think so, yeah, and
Yeah,
that's
he's
probably
just
an
said-
indication that he's giving up on white there.
Absolutely giving up on white.
If he were still on the unoffensive plan, then, you know, that could be an option, but it looks like he's acknowledging that black is open here and moving into that, and wisely so.
That looks like a Carsey Sadist, just a kind of filler creature in this deck.
Yeah, not a lot for him here in this pack. I think, you know, the Sadist is something that might fill out your deck depending on your curve, but not something you're
Yeah,
super
I mean, it's funny.
excited to get here.
Although the Sadist has exploit, I usually find it, you know, you're playing it because you want to have something to exploit by the time you get to turns 3 or 4.
Yep. Interestingly, Dragon Fodder can be a card that actually plays really well with
Right.
exploit.
Absolutely.
Sort of the sideways red-black exploit deck.
There we see Mind Rot.
Yep, picking up a Mind Rot. A card that the Peach Garden Oath, Reed Duke, and Owen Turnwald, and Huey Jensen like a bit more than some of the other pro players, I think.
You certainly wouldn't be able to tell that from William Jensen's face. He seemed a little sour about it.
Yeah,
there.
I think he's probably a little bit disappointed at this point in the
Yeah.
draft. I mean, he had to abandon his strong first pick rare, and while black looks to be open, you know, he's not getting too much great late in the pack here.
Right. Strong Arm Monk is the pick there for him. There's a Marsh Hulk.
Sort of getting a case of mixed signals here. I mean, the Strong Arm Monk is something you might be excited to play in a
Right.
white-blue deck, but
Interesting, took a Culligan Monument there.
yeah, I actually like to pick up the monuments.
Oh, no. Very late Tormenting Voice.
So sort of rounding out with some, you know, solid cards that can fill out his deck, but I think he's... Wow! Is that Ruthless Deathfang?
It
Came all the way
is.
back?
That's crazy. So is this a case where you think everyone comes into the draft table is very aware of the blue-black deck and is maybe scared of it? I mean, is there a situation where
Maybe.
you,
I mean-
you were blue-black where you wouldn't take Ruthless Deathfang?
It seems like something strange would have to happen for that to be the case. I mean, maybe players opened strong rares and sort of stuck with their original picks there and didn't want to move in on blue-black in the same way that Jensen didn't move in on it early. But now that he has the Deathfang there and it's abundantly clear that no one else at the table is blue and black, he may pick up on that and decide to shift gears a little bit. After all, he's not super excited with what he has so far in red.
Right,
just
and
a
you
few
can still
filler
potentially
creatures.
splash the Twin Bolt.
Yep. Or on the other hand, splash the Deathfang. He could be
Right.
base black
Yeah,
red.
absolutely. There you get a look at his picks. Yeah, Jensen's a big fan of this draft format. You talked to him a little bit. You said about Mind Rot, but like you said, a return to like draft fundamentals, which should reward someone like Jensen.
Yep, absolutely. Find the open colors, you know, draft a good curve, draft removal spells. Let's take a look at pack 2 here.
Oh, there's a Swift Workite. That's a card wow. And Ojutai's command in there. There's a Deathwind.
Yeah, Deathwind, super solid. That could be the pick for him here.
Summit Prowler that might make its way back around the table to him.
Yep.
Have you gotten the Swift Workite Dutiful Attendant combo going at all?
I haven't myself, but it sounds pretty exciting. So it looks like he's eyeing up the Deathwind
Oh,
here,
yeah,
which is
absolutely.
definitely the conservative pick. I mean, if he's not sure whether he's going to be black and blue or black and red now, Deathwind is just going to be great in either deck. And based on how we saw pack 1 go, there's a decent chance that the Dragon will come back around to him anyway.
Yeah, he did, and he did take Deathwind, of course.
So we'll keep our eyes open and see if that Swift Workite comes back around pick 9. It's a long shot, but it's a possibility.
Oh, there's another Swift
Another
War
Swift
Kite.
Warkite. Okay.
There's a Flatten and an Acid Spear Dragon.
And again, I'd expect him to go for the sort of conservative pick here with the black removal spell again. The 6-mana dragons, in general, while quite powerful, you really only want maybe 1 or 2 in your deck, whereas you'll take as many Flattens as you can get. So.
Yeah, and you kind of think of those uncommon dragons really as being 3 drops, right? You think of them as being like kind of your morph, and if you get to turn them face up, that's great.
Right.
Yeah, look at Jensen's face. Here we see. There's a Gurmag Drowner.
A
Wow,
Reckless Imp.
Ojutai Exemplars.
Wow.
Yeah, Huey turned his head on that one a little bit, like, whoa, what's going on here?
Yeah, really interesting. I think maybe the fact that he shifted away from white in pack 1 and started letting the white pass through him in the middle of the pack. He might have expected the people on his left to move into white then, but looks like they didn't if the Ojutai Exemplars is coming this late. So definitely a case of mixed signals here, but he seems to be navigating well.
Yeah, no, he took the Reckless Imp instead.
Yep.
But it looked a little painful.
Yeah. I think given perhaps the weakish start to his draft, he looked a little unhappy there. I think he wants to center himself in black, knowing that it's one of the deeper colors in the format.
So Sprinting Warbrute, a Shambling Goblin. Another card. You say this is another Gurmag Drowner in the pack. Is there a Stampeding Elk Herd in that pack? Wow.
Sprinting Warbrute, a card I like quite a bit. I mean, if your opponent's not playing around this can really take them by surprise for just a ton of damage.
And it's great with the Sabertooth.
Yep.
Because you play the Sabertooth on turn 4, and then you can dash
curve
this
right
guy
into
in
your
and
formidable.
just 9 points that are pretty tough for your opponent to deal with. There's another Sabertooth. There's a defeat.
Yep, defeat. A solid removal spell that can help you in the early game, not fall too far behind. And Jensen's deck not looking super aggressive right now, so I think that's a card that he's happy to pick up. He's sort of strangely aggressive in the sense that he'll be attacking with high power creatures, but not aggressive in the sense that he's fast. So he definitely wants some things to make sure he doesn't fall behind early in the game. Is that a Call Simsa Behemoth?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a strange card. I've heard a lot of mixed opinions on this one. On the one hand, it has great stats for its mana cost, but having to pay 2 to use it each turn is a huge cost as well.
But it could be kind of nice in a deck that has a lot of removal spells because you could sit on your mana, you have your mana open,
Exactly.
Your opponent has to make a decision about whether or not they want to attack.
Yeah, having instants is definitely the key to taking advantage of that.
There's a Duress at the top of the pack.
Duress could be a good sideboard card. Kindled Fury could work okay with his high power creatures, although he doesn't look like he's going to be a creature dense deck, so I think he's going to shy away from the trick.
Takes the Palace Familiar.
Yeah. Probably more so a counter draft at this point, just to make sure other people can't exploit easily. Although he may be keeping his options open for possibly exploring blue. He's certainly much heavier black than he is red at this point.
So there's Marsh Hulk.
Yeah, decent pickup.
Ignore the numbers in the upper right hand casting cost. That's a 3-drop.
Yeah, exactly. Is that a Sipsig Icebreakers?
Yeah, and then one of the red 3-drops I wasn't able to see. Looks like that was a Scream Reach Brawler.
So it looks like no luck on either of these Swift Warkites coming back around. So there's definitely someone else competing for the black and red color combination.
So just rounding out, there's a Colligan Skirmisher.
Yeah, I think that's a card he's pretty happy to pick up this late, just rounding out
Wow,
his curve.
another Scream Reach.
And these are really good late pickups for him, actually. Given that he sort of muddled around with his colors a little bit early, I think he's really happy to just get solid 2 and 3 drops. These can trade with morphs, just kind of help you curve out earlier in the game and not fall behind.
Tygon Strike is the last pick. I actually like where his deck's at this point.
Yeah, I think it really rounded out in that second pack a lot. I mean, picking up those removal spells was really a huge boon for him. And then, as we were just saying, late in the pack, getting access to just some solid creatures that can fill out his early curve.
What do you think he's looking for now going into Fate Reforged?
I think, he'll welcome more removal for sure. I think he's really, since he did pass up on those dragons, the Swift Workites and other options there, I think he's looking for something to round out his curve, maybe as a finisher. Because again, he has the potential to be aggressive, but he's not a very fast deck. So I think he's going to want a contingency plan for later on in the game. If he slows things down with his removal and his early creatures, he's going to want something really powerful that can take over the late game. So needless to say, he'd welcome a powerful rare from Fate Reforged.
Sure.
I think anyone could say that.
Perhaps a Kolagon.
Yep. Kolagon herself would be perfect here. And notably, looks like he's largely abandoned the option to go blue.
Oh, yeah.
Despite having the Ruthless Deathfang. Yeah.
So there's a Temur Battle Rage.
Yeah, Mardu Scout could be decent.
Mardu Scout's kind of floated to the top.
Yeah, and if he does go with the Mardu Scout here, I mean, based on the end of last pack, picking up some early dash creatures, he could try to shift gears and actually be a little bit more aggressive and kind of move into that archetype where he's going to play a lot of early creatures and then back them up with removal spells to kill his opponent's mid-game creatures and just get in tons of damage with these early dash creatures. So, as I said earlier, he was shaping up to be a little bit more of a controlling removal-heavy red-black deck. Things have changed with the last, 5 or 6 picks there.
Yeah, a couple of Scream Reach Brawlers, and now the Mardu War Scout gives him stuff to do on the first few turns of the game.
Yep, and that's where we see really the strength of an experienced player like Jensen being able to be cognizant of that and potentially shift gears.
There's a
Tarkir World Render in the back of the pack there, but Huey stays disciplined and just goes for the Bathe in Dragonfire, which certainly you can't complain about here.
Premium removal spell. Yeah. Apparently, there's a red-green player with open arms sitting to the to the other side of William Jensen, who's going to gladly accept the gift he's been handed.
So now at this point, I think Jensen would be happy to get more aggressive creatures. He'd be happy to see more removal spells. Again, still looking for probably
Gloom,
Oh yeah.
And
I think Dousing Gloom going to be the clear pick here. I mean, there's a collateral damage, but that's just a weaker card, and he doesn't really have the expendable creatures like the Dragon Fodders that you really want to combine with that.
And you don't really have as much time with the morphs in this set as we grew accustomed to in Kanza Tarkir.
Right.
So you really want to kill them sometimes.
Yes.
You're like, wow, you know what? If that is an Tarkir Ifrit, I'm just dead. I need to kill that.
Especially with the Megamorph mechanic becoming even larger in the late game.
Yeah.
You do need to deal with those morphs at some point. And Dousing Gloom is the perfect card for that.
Wow,
is that a Goblin Heel Cutter?
That is a Goblin Heel Cutter, and this is shaping up to be a fairly aggressive deck.
Yeah, so forget what we said earlier about being a more controlling, slower red-black deck, which I think was the case at the time, but now we're totally shifting gears into, dash-heavy, early aggression backed up by removal spells, which is an archetype that I love. I love to play those aggressive sort of tempo decks.
Looking to flatten his opponents both literally and metaphorically.
Right. And the more of these early aggressive creatures he picks up, the less likely he is to need a sort of a big finisher like a dragon.
There's a Sultai Emissary. Nice, just a nice card.
Yeah, a card I'm happy to play in any deck. Of course, it works great with Exploit, but...
he does have the Butchers.
Oh, yeah, great point. Great point.
Not a ton of targets otherwise.
Yeah, even just as things like Kolagon Skirmisher and Mardu Scout lose value later in the game, you're happy to butcher them away.
Right. Ideally, after your opponent's maybe pacified your creature, it's pretty sweet. Okay, there's
Is
a
it a
gore
gore
swine.
swine?
Yeah.
Combines great with the heel cutter. And even just other dash creatures. I mean, all of a sudden having extra hasty creatures on the table can put your opponent in a position where they need to block the gore swine and trades up for...
Right. I was just going to say, the big thing about gore swine is he trades up with bigger creatures that your
Yes.
opponent's playing on maybe turns 4 and 5 sometimes.
Yep. If your opponent's plan is to block, then gore swine into goblin heel cutter can really put the pressure on him.
There's a second Sultai Emissary.
Okay,
And
so-
we talked a lot about non-aligned colors, and you see a Harsh Sustenance, a card that was a fairly high pick in the previous draft format, just sort of drifting around the table in search of a home that might not exist.
That's right. Yeah, that's definitely one of the potential paths you can take, is trying to reap the rewards of those late multicolor commons. But now with this Sultai Emissary, I mean, Jensen's got to be feeling great. Those butchers are officially on now. Let's see what he's got here. I think I see a Teamer Battle Rage, but going with the creature instead.
Oh, the Bloodfire Enforcers.
Yeah, not a card he can turn on that easily in his deck, but still,
He's got a Defeat as a sorcery. He's got a...
some flattens.
he's got, he's also got, Defeat, and he's got Bathe in Dragonfire.
Oh, sure, sure.
So, I mean, it can happen. Diplomacy of the Wastes.
Yeah, probably a sideboard card at best in his deck, but a good option to have. There are quite a few black and red warriors.
That looks like another Bloodfire Enforcers for him.
Yep.
I mean, Bloodfire Enforcers and the Sabretooth Outcast, he's...
Yeah, he's definitely
It's
going
a
to be
formidable
glutted
duo.
on fours, though. He's going to have to choose. A collateral damage there, it looks like he picks
Collateral
up.
damage pretty sweet with the pair of Sultai Emissaries.
Yep, and with dash also.
Yeah.
I mean, you can sort of be mana efficient, dash in, get a hit with your creature, and then use it to collateral damage, toward the end of the game.
Just takes the Sibzig Host. Rune Mark, or... Yeah, he takes the Rune Mark. He's like, you know what, I just don't want to lose to a Rune Mark here. Although, he can play it. And it looks like that was a break the line. Break through the line, yeah.
Break through the line. Oh, interesting. Could be
Not,
an option. in
not
certain
an
decks.
unplayable card.
Yeah, it's definitely a good sideboard card to keep in mind. Again, if your opponent's plan is blocking, then that can be a great one to have. So
You say that with such disdain. Every time you say the word blocking. The players get a little quick review while they...
So I think things shaped up quite well after what I would consider a little bit of a rocky start. I think William Jensen really found his way there and just maneuvered.
It's funny. Is it a rocky start, or is it more? You talked to the idea about it being a classic draft format. Is that more classic drafting, where you're like, okay, I'm going to take this. Now I'm going to take this best card that I'm past, and then I'm going to wait for the table to tell me which way to go.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely what it was. I mean, ideally, you'd be able to stick with your first pick rare that you were really happy to have. But I think that, you have to have realistic expectations and know that you have to take a few picks to read the table and settle into where you're supposed to be given your seat. And I think Jensen just did a great job of that.
Right. There you get to look at William Jensen's stats. 341 lifetime pro points, closing in on $200,000 lifetime dollars earned, probably a year off from cracking that, possibly one event off.
Yeah.
5 Pro Tour top 8s, and just a Grand Prix monster since he's returned to the
Oh,
game.
absolutely. Yeah. Just one of the best players at the moment, I think.
Yeah, and really the guy I think that leads the charge for the Pantheon when it comes to drafting. Mm-hmm. So, welcome back to the booth. Ian Duke, Brian David Marshall. We just watched Pro Tour Hall of Famer William Jensen draft. Now what's going to happen is these players are going to go and build their decks. They register each card that they've selected. They build their deck. They check off what they're going to be playing, and that takes about a half hour or 40 minutes, something like that. But I know that we've recorded another draft.
All right.
And we are going to get to take a look at that. I don't know who it is, but I'm going to assume it was the other player with a bracketed number near his name.
And that would be Jacob
And that would
Wilson,
be Jacob
right?
Wilson, yeah. So William Jensen, of course, the number 8 pro in the top Pro Tour ranking, in the Pro Tour player rankings. William Jensen, the 12th ranked player.
Jacob Wilson.
Jacob Wilson, sorry,
Yep.
yeah. So 8 and 12, two of the top 25 players in the world right now.
Yeah.
Sitting at this draft
Quite
table.
the table.
Yeah, and so there's some players there who whose names are not familiar. Maybe they're PTQ winners, maybe they're Grand Prix top 8 competitors, and it's got to be pretty amazing to go to the Pro Tour, get to look up at the pairing board, say like, oh wow, look at these guys in my table, and then be like, please go to the feature match draft area.
Yeah, it
and,
can be a little intimidating, huh?
Yeah, and know that your entire draft will be recorded. So you saw guys with clipboards behind each of the players, registering each pick. And what happens is those picks are then transcribed into this little program, and the result is a draft viewer.
So let me just ask you, if you're a PTQ winning player that's coming to the Pro Tour for the first time, do you draft differently when you're around players like Jacob Wilson and Huey Jensen?
I mean, I think if you've paid attention to what those guys say, is you shouldn't. But I can't imagine that if you're getting there for the first time, it doesn't get in your mind.
Yeah.
So we're ready to send it back to the studio, and we're going to see how we're just guessing here how Jacob Wilson drafted. But let's find out when we send it back to the news desk.